Welcome to this week's Riks Round Up by Riks Europe. My name is Rebecca, and in the panel today, Scarlett Padroleva, host and reporter for Riks Europe, and Elias Norgren, editor-in-chief for Riks Europe. Welcome back.
Happy to be here.
As always.
Topics today: the first 100 days with Keir Starmer, the platform X back in Brazil, and Musk joins Trump in rally. So let's get started. Keir Starmer, a headline from The Telegraph: are Keir Starmer's first 100 days the worst for any PM in British history? So the headline is rather telling, but Elias, why has his time in office been considered so catastrophic?
Yeah, this is Daniel Johnson on The Telegraph making this analysis, and I tend to agree with him, not just because I'm critical of Labour as it stands, but also because Starmer he's in a very difficult position, and he has a lot of difficulty accomplishing anything of note in that sense. So I believe that one of the crises that Starmer is embroiled in is that the Labour Party is extremely contradictory at this point. Because you had during the run-up to the election campaign, he was trying to campaign on a sort of like moderate and, kind of patriotic platform, trying to bring back national rhetoric into politics, which had been lacking in the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn, and also, of course, all of these left-wing radicals that were infesting the party. So he was trying to bring back a sort of sensibility in that sense, and was also talking a lot about immigration, how the Tories hadn't fixed immigration, and how Labour is going to reduce immigration, and all of these type of rhetoric that would appeal to, I suppose, the people who abandoned the Labour Party in the 2019 election and voted for the Tories instead. Now, what you actually got right now in Labour is still a very destructive left-wing radical. Very significant parts of the party is still under these types of influences. And I think that's what's hampering this, because you can't really reach a policy agreement on most things that really matter to the British public. For example, on security, on policing, not the very least, two-tier policing, and on immigration, and even on topics like the British relationship to Europe and the EU, for example, and the European Court of Human Rights, which is a different issue that has arisen recently. And I don't think you can really bring stability to a government that is composed of all of these very different types of elements. And there's also a different problem that also Daniel Johnson on The Telegraph points out, and it's that Starmer spreads fear and despondency rather than good cheer. And this is a major problem, I think, that Starmer has. He's not very charismatic. He's not very liked. He's very robotic-esque in his approach. He doesn't really resonate with people and doesn't really feel like a leader and a statesman. He just feels like an empty shell. And I think that's going to hamper his ability to really mobilize the good forces that he may or may not have in his party.
And Scarlett, is there hope for the people that Keir Starmer and his government will turn the opinion or public opinion around? Example that he would address two-tier policing in a more satisfactory way with the voters?
The first 100 days are so crucial for a new prime minister. Like, this is the first moment he actually gets to establish, or not in this case, trust from the public. And the reason why so many Brits voted for him, because he had so many promises on actually helping the healthcare system and helping the vulnerables, which also turned out not to be true, because he's leaving all those elderly people now in the cold by taking away their energy subsidies. And I think what Elias is saying is true. I mean, he's not charismatic, and he's even saying that, things will get first worse before they're getting better. I mean, at least with Sunak, he promised that things will get better. So that's not very hopeful for people. And I think actions speak louder than words. Like, let's look at his trial, what he has been doing over the first 100 days. The country is in a complete mess. People got to get out of prison even though they did horrible things just to put people in prison that said some harmful things online. And of course, that can also be a crime, but it doesn't equal murdering someone and then releasing someone earlier to put someone into prison just because for saying something online. And then, of course, let's look at the people that were being held now in the cold. We have elderly that have to choose between eating and heating. And the funny thing is, or it's not funny at all, is that he does have 11 billion just to send to some overseas climate policies. Charity starts at home. Of course, you also have the promise that he would actually make sure that there would be stricter borders policies. We don't see anything of that, because now more illegal migrants than ever are coming into the UK. So yeah, it's not weird to see that there's a net zero approval of 36% for Keir Starmer. And I don't think there's any hope, because he already established himself as a prime minister. We have seen what his leadership style is, and it will not change in the upcoming 4 years or 5 years.
And I think it's also important to remember that Labour did not really win the British election, but the Tories lost it. And it's only because the Tories failed so catastrophically that Labour is actually even in power. They have no real mandate from people or from within. They have no enthusiasm for what they're actually about to do to supposedly fix the country, because there's so many different visions of what actually needs to be done. Some of them are very far left radical. Some of them are more moderate and centrist, but it's just going to end up in a really big mess. And that's what the first 100 days have really shown.
I agree with you, Elias. I mean, let's not forget these were snap elections. And I think if we look, for example, at Reform UK, how well they are doing and how they're basically now the opposition in the UK, if there would have been more time, they would have a bigger chance of winning. And I think exactly because of the snap elections, it is that Labour had won.
Definitely a topic that we could talk about for hours. There's so much to be said, but we do have to move on to our second topic. The platform X is up and running again in Brazil. Elias, could you first of all remind the viewers again exactly what happened, why it was taken down in the first place?
Also, the High Court of Brazil, which is headed by the notorious judge Alexander Moraes, or however he's supposed to pronounce that, decreed against the platform X and Elon Musk that he must have a legal representative of his company in Brazil and must also remove a particular set of accounts on the platform X that was supposedly spreading so-called disinformation and far-right conspiracy theories. Now, obviously, this is a very authoritarian move from a government, in effect a government, from a court in a not very democratic state that is Brazil. So actually, I'm actually quite surprised that Elon Musk actually relented to these demands and gave in, actually did exactly what the government wanted him to do. He banned these accounts, hundreds of accounts apparently on X, and he also instituted a legal representative in the country that is supposed to be beholden to the censorship laws that Brazil is now enforcing. He also paid a fine of, I believe, $5 million.
And Scarlett, why is it now up again? How can we interpret this from a political standpoint? Is it good or bad for freedom of speech?
It does make sense that Elon Musk actually is agreeing with the demands of the court, because at the end of the day, he is a businessman. He's running a business. Brazil is one of their biggest markets. They have 20 to 40 million users in the country. So I think he was under a lot of pressure of his shareholders. And it is a shame. I think a lot of people were looking at Elon Musk as sort of this hope and beacon for freedom and transparency. You know, there's so much hope that he would actually advocate for the freedom of speech, because this will set a precedent. It will set the tone on whether governments have more power over digital platforms, and also what can and cannot be said online. And let's not forget that actually at this moment, Elon Musk is having another court case with the EU over the Digital Service Act. And it doesn't look promising if it's going to be in favor of an authoritarian law that is diminishing us to actually share ideas, whether you agree with them or not. So it doesn't set a really good precedent for the upcoming cases and the freedom of speech online.
No, not really. And also, I mean, that's true. Elon Musk is a businessman at the end of the day, but he still portrayed himself and has acted in a rather somewhat consistently in the manner of a sort of idealist who really wants to embody these values of freedom of speech, not the very least. So it is very worrying also that there's a study, an analysis that was done by the Rest of World Institute that shows that Elon Musk and X compliance with government censorship demands have actually increased under Elon Musk. You know, before it was known as Twitter, now it's X. It has actually increased under Elon Musk, despite all of his promises and his character, his appeal to freedom of speech. So this is a big contradiction in Elon Musk's sort of narrative of what he's doing with X, and I suppose it's pragmatic, as you said. I mean, he still needs to deliver this service to millions of political dissidents in various countries, and he can't really have the site be shut down over minor things. That means, sure, you can ban these 100 radical conspiracy theorists in Brazil, for whatever that means. But it sets a bad precedent, really. I mean, where is this going to end? It's probably not going to end in a good place, I think.
Now, to quote Eduardo Bolsonaro, who we got to interview in Parliament just a couple of months ago, and this was before everything went downhill in the UK and we saw people being locked up over online comments, he said, "This will come to your doorways faster than you think." And I don't think any of us would have predicted it would come and slap us in the face as fast as it did. So yeah, it will set a precedent, and it doesn't look too bright, unfortunately.
And staying on the topic of Elon Musk, a headline from Euronews: billionaire Elon Musk joins Donald Trump at US election campaign rally. Scarlett, Musk's public endorsement of Trump comes at a time when the former president is facing significant challenges, including legal issues and political opposition. How do you think Musk's influence can help appeal to Trump's campaign and his voters?
Well, to start off with, I think it's going to actually work in his favor. Let's not forget that Elon Musk is really framing himself now into a right-wing section. He's obviously in favor of Trump. He's in favor of free speech, and he basically is everything. He's in favor of everything that the Democrats are not. And I think these two collaborating, because let's be honest, the sidekick that he was at Trump's rally was one that we all saw coming. They are actually enhancing each other and the message that they have, because at the end of the day, I think they both have similar agendas. They both want to have a free country. They both want to have the freedom of speech, and it will not happen under Kamala Harris. So I don't think it's going to work against Musk. I think actually it will work in his favor. And I also really want to say something about the fact that Trump actually went back to the place where he was almost assassinated, where there was an attempt on his life. The fact that after 2 attempts, he is still willing to stand on a stage, it shows a very clear message, and that you cannot let him back down. He is not afraid of any threat. And now with the world having threats everywhere, look at the Middle East, look at the war in Ukraine, look with all the economical issues going on, you need to have a firm leader. And I think Trump proved that. And having Elon Musk as a sidekick jumping up and down on that stage actually enhanced that message.
And Elias, Musk has referred to the upcoming election as the last election if Trump doesn't win, suggesting a dire political landscape. How do you interpret this statement?
Well, I think what he's after in these statements is what he's been positing on X, actually, the population replacement. He's talking about how the Democrats are using mass migration to levy political support for themselves, because they know that many of these migrants, most of the migrants that are arriving across the US border, are going to swing the vote in the favor of the Democrats, because these voters are blue, so to speak. They're going to turn the red Republican states into blue Democratic states. And this has been a long-running not a long-running perhaps, but this has been a theme for the last couple of years among some elements on the right wing that are opposed to immigration. I think it's very practical for Donald Trump to sort of channel this sentiment onto his campaign without necessarily saying it himself, because this is something that people associate with Elon Musk. And if he's on the campaign trail and is associated with this message, and maybe even says these messages on stage, then Donald Trump doesn't have to do it. So it becomes easier for him to focus on the other issues that are probably less divisive. And I think it's very useful. And I think it's contrary to what we said about Elon Musk previously. I think this is where he shows his his idealistic side, much less so than his sort of keen businessman type of style, because I don't think this is he's not really doing this for profit. I think he is doing this, his engagement for Trump and for like the nationalist sort of narrative of the United States. I think that he's doing it because he's convinced that this is the morally right thing to do. And it reflects very good on Trump, and it reflects very good on Elon Musk in Republican voter eyes mainly.
Thank you, Scarlett Karolieva, host and reporter for Riks Europe, and Elias Norgren, editor-in-chief for Riks Europe, for your insights today.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Riks Europe.